Separated by cosmic cabinets, Brandon, Paul, and Logan are broadcasting the Breakdown Podcast live using their telepathic powers. My name is Brandon Miracle, broadcasting from a JPEG. If you look to the right of me in the video version, you'll see Logan Welliver broadcasting from an actual space. And if you look south of me in the video version, you'll see Paul Anderson broadcasting from an actual space that has no posters. This is the Breakdown Podcast, episode 31, broadcast live on October 1st. Time to get spooky, 2018.
And we're all here. When's the last time that happened?
I legitimately don't remember the last time that happened.
I feel like it might have been within like the last 2 or 3 podcasts.
It might have been with Sean.
It's been a while, like before that. It might be now that you mention it. Well, we're here now. That's what's important.
So exactly 2 weeks ago was the last time you got all three of us together.
Has that only been 2 weeks?
Should have been. What's up, Taylor?
Yeah, but it feels a lot longer because we're very, very busy.
Yeah,
we're busy boys.
We haven't seen each other together in so long that it just feels like it was forever ago.
It's been a while, but we're here now. So on the docket today, we've got a lot of movies, TV, anime, and games to talk about. Now that we're doing this as a bi-weekly show, we build up our ammunition a little bit more as time goes on. Now that you've
finally gotten through Kingdom Hearts, you actually have other things on your list.
I know, right? That was the one thing keeping me from doing anything. It's still keeping me from doing a lot of things, actually. But I digress.
I know the feel, man. I know the feel.
I went back and I watched, not all of them, but like the major Kingdom Hearts 3 trailers, because I just wanted to get a feel for it after playing Kingdom Hearts 0.2.
Yes. It's just Kingdom Hearts, yes, at this point.
Specifically 0.2. And yeah, it seems like the story is definitely going places, which I'm happy about that because this is going to be the end. At least of the first arc, which took 15 years to make.
15 years is no time.
It's a Christmas miracle. Well,
no, it's a Halloween miracle.
I'm a miracle. Hi. So actually, in the spirit of Kingdom Hearts, I started going back and just checking out some movies. One of the major players, as far as world to go in Kingdom Hearts 3, is going to be Toy Story. And
Toy Story.
That got me really wanting to go back and watch the Toy Story movies. So I watched all 3 of them, actually.
That's the way to do it.
The weird thing is I started with Toy Story 2, because it's actually been the longest since I've seen Toy Story 2 versus any of the 3. So I went and watched Toy Story 2 first. And I really enjoyed it. I mean, obviously I enjoyed it. It's a great movie, a great follow-up to Toy Story. This is like one of the only trilogies in movie history where all of the movies are like top tier, critically acclaimed, and in pretty much every case, the sequel was better than the previous, the film that came before it.
I would echo that statement.
It's not the awkward middle child.
Yeah.
No.
All those movies are just, I don't know what it is, because like, Pixar has had a few like misses in the past few years, especially with some of the sequels. But for some reason, like there are at no shortage of ideas about Toy Story. Like I saw an article talking about Tim Allen, who was doing lines for Toy Story 4, and he was saying that like, okay, like apparently Toy Story 4 is like on a whole new level. Like he had trouble getting through some of his lines.
He specifically said he had issues getting through the end of the script.
Yeah.
He was getting too emotional. And I remember being kind of unsure when Toy Story 4 got announced, because Toy Story 3 is one of the most perfect film wrap-ups ever. Just like you could put a bow on that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come back with another sequel. It's like, well, you ended it perfectly already. Where can you go from here?
Yeah, I guess maybe. I mean, I can't imagine that. I mean, okay, maybe it's an incredible script, but I can't imagine that part of it isn't. He's been playing that character for like 20 years now.
Yeah,
and you get really into it, and then whatever they're doing, maybe they kill off a character.
Well, it's entirely possible.
Obviously, there was a key character in the third film that they name dropped and then they didn't deal with. So I can't imagine that they didn't answer that in this upcoming film.
That's the subject
which comes out
matter
next year.
of this movie.
Next year,
actually.
Yeah.
Bo Peep and Woody are the center of this next movie. Whether that takes place like after the end of I almost said Kingdom Hearts, after the end of Toy Story 3, or if it takes place in between, who knows? But
yeah,
either way, I'm excited for that. And then Toy Story 3 specifically, I knew going into that I was going to be a wreck by the time it was over. Turns out I was right. That movie is so powerful, especially for me, because I relate to I relate to Andy's situation an incredible amount. Like, every kid has those set of toys that they always go back to, that they have adventures with and everything. And, I have a set of those up in my attic, and I kept thinking back to it. And I can still kind of remember the period of my life where I stopped going back to them, and I stopped being capable of enjoying myself, playing with them. And whether that was whether I was a victim of, just growing up, or, I thought I was too cool for it, who knows? But, at the end of the movie, spoiler alert for Toy Story 3, at the end of the movie, when Andy donates his toys to Bonnie, and he has that one last play session with his toys, that just hit me so hard, because as an adult male, I have yet to have that kind of experience. But at the same time, I also haven't let go of all of the things I held sacred as a child, quite to the same degree that Andy did. So I don't know if I will ever have that experience. I might not ever let go.
I think you will. There's this very set time, I think, for you specifically, that's going to approach sooner than me and Logan, where you're going to have a kid. And then you have all these toys on hand. I think you're going to have that moment. It's just...
I mean, in all likelihood, you'll have a kid before us.
if you don't have a kid that loves Dragon Ball Z that you can't give all those toys to, the universe is cruel. It's just straight up cruel.
I don't have that many toys from when I was a kid. I mean, if I did have any toys, it was Legos and Lincoln Logs and building things. And those still sit around my house, and I'll get a little bit choked up about those. But I have a lot of stuffed animals, just a handful that just kind of exist, in my room, and they just get thrown on my bed. And I don't really think about them a ton, but a lot of those have sentimental value. For example, I have this little panda bear that I got in Washington, D.C. And I was always a huge fan of pandas. And I remember it cost $10. I paid $10 of my own money. And, it just kind of represents a really, really cool moment in my life. And it still brings some comfort. Also, things like baby blankets, right? I still have my baby blankets. Those don't exist on my bed anymore. Because a lot of them are falling apart. So they exist in a box of memories and stuff like that. But again, it serves the same purpose. Is these are things that hold a lot of sentimental value, that offered comfort when you were younger. And, those are always things that you want to keep around to a certain degree, and you don't want to let go. And then maybe you'll pass them on to the next generation.
I made one terrible mistake when I get to that point. I still have just an insane amount of Hot Wheels in a storage locker somewhere. But I did get rid of all of my Legos. And that's the one that hurts, because I couldn't money was tight growing up, and I was lucky to have Legos, but I couldn't really get action figures and stuff like that. And so I remember a lot of times just making action figures with Legos. And so those were they could be anything I wanted or needed them to be. So they were, to me, the perfect toy. And so I'm probably Legos are expensive too. So I don't know how I had those, but I'm gonna end up having to buy them again at some point. Well, maybe for my kid, maybe not.
you kind of go back to that video I did on us and our past experiences making Smash Machinima, and kind of the catalyst of that was me making up my own stories with the characters when I'd play Melee when I was younger. And that was actually just an evolution of what I would already do with the toys I had. It's just I had a canvas that was already painted, and it was easier and clearer for me to see what was happening through the lens of the video game than it was in my own imagination.
Mm-hmm.
And to some degree, I still do that. Like, it's not over.
Mm-hmm.
So I haven't entirely let go of that aspect of my childhood. It's just, it's taken a different form. You have screenwriters who write scripts and that kind of stuff, and they're doing the exact same thing kids do with their action figures. They're telling themselves stories. Logan, I think you were going to say something.
Well, I mean, I don't know. That kind of becomes like the things that we do, that becomes our toys, right?
Mm-hmm.
What we used to play with action figures and something that wasn't terribly constructive in terms of actually creating something like physical or something that can be like, you might say something that can be monetized, right? But when you get older, it's like, oh, you got to make money. And so finding ways to turn the things that you enjoy into a living, is something that people do. So like these our action figures. I mean, the podcast, this is the action figures of today, in a sense. Not that we don't still collect things like Amiibo and things that will sit on our shelves and look nice. And I remember as a kid, like playing with like specifically dinosaurs. Oh man, had so many dinosaurs, like action figures, and just making them like brawl and just tear each other up. And now we tear up ideas and tear up like videos and stuff like that. And it's the same kind of feeling. It's a little bit more involved, but I mean, we value that hard work. Whereas as a kid, you were like, no, keep anything that resembles hard work away from me, right? So it changes form.
Yeah, I don't think I could have said it any better. That said, I'm pretty excited for Toy Story 4. I'm more excited at the prospect of them surprising me again. I don't think I need Toy Story 4 to be as groundbreaking or as fantastical as the first three movies. In my mind, Toy Story 4 is going to be something that stands apart from the original three films.
Yeah.
But if it manages to surprise me again, I'll consider that a win as far as a fourth movie goes.
I'll say this. Here's what I anticipate from just the series in general and Toy Story 4. We saw, we've seen Toy Story grow with us. You watch Toy Story and it's like, oh, it's about like, the toys finding their way back. And it's just a really neat premise. Toy Story 2 is obviously a little bit more of the same in some ways.
Well, you deal with the kind of collector side of the adult people who collect toys.
Right. And then Toy Story 3 obviously is Andy growing out of that and us growing out of that, but then it's still having its place, and respecting what those toys meant to us. And I think in a similar way, like now, say, you treat Toy Story as like its own person, like the whole series. Well, now we're older and we're getting involved in romances and other parts of our life. But doing it in the context of like Toy Story, and I would say like in a similar way to something like BoJack Horseman, is you present an idea within a context that's pretty far removed from like a heavier subject, like in and of itself. Like you can't, and it's disarming, right? And so people can be introduced to ideas that are inherently uncomfortable or can be uncomfortable. Yet, because it's presented in a certain way, it's easier to digest.
Speaking of presentations and digestible formats, the other, I don't know if I would call it a TV show, but in fact, this was only a couple hours ago that I did this. I started listening to Talking Tunes, which is Rob Paulsen's podcast, where he talks about the voice acting industry and the careers of various voice actors in the world right now. And if you don't know who Rob Paulsen is, he was the voice of Wacko in the Animaniacs, as well as multiple Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and a whole treasure trove of other classic characters. He's also
he was Pinky as well.
Yes, he was Pinky. He's also the father of Ash Paulsen, who's over on Game Explain. Neat factoid for you there. So I had many times forgotten that this show exists. I've been wanting to listen to it for a long time. I just remembered today that it's on Verve because, I mean, they filmed them too. You can watch it like a TV show. It's a multicam setup. They have a floating cam on there. It's pretty cool. And I saw that he had an episode with Steve Blum, who is a very well-known and well-respected voice actor, especially to anime fans. You'll know him as Spike Spiegel in Cowboy Bebop.
I revisited Cowboy Bebop this past 2 weeks.
Oh, well, look at that. It's good timing.
Small world.
He's also the voice of Tom, the host of Toonami. To this day, he is still the voice of Tom. So that's pretty cool. He kind of was our dad growing up. You know what? We'd get home from school, pop on Cartoon Network, watch some Toonami, and Steve Blum would be ready there.
He's the dad that was there
every day. You're all our daddy, Steve Blum. If you ever watched this. That killed me. Anyway, towards the beginning of this podcast, I was taking part in a online webinar series of classes with Steve Blum over on his website of bloomvoxstudios.com. It is a voice acting workshop that gives you the opportunity to get one-on-one experience with Steve Blum, as well as other ADR directors and other people in the business. And I just remembered being really absorbed in the kinds of things he has to say. Like, he's a very down-to-earth person. The way he gets into the voice acting scene is a lot different than most people. And he tells that story with Rob Paulsen, and it really resonates with me. He talks about work ethic, a lot of the conversations that we've had here on the show before, and a lot of things that, Logan, that you'll bring up when we start doing the real talk kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it was very uplifting, and just getting to hear about Steve Blum's journey again, but in a one-on-one format with Rob Paulsen was very fascinating. And I would highly recommend anyone who's even remotely interested in this kind of stuff to check out Talking Tunes. You can listen to it for free on podcasting sources, or if you have Verve, you can watch the actual show, which is the way I'd recommend to do it. I'm currently listening to an episode he did with Sean Schemmel, who you'll know as the English voice of Goku. And boy, can Sean talk at a mile a minute. So, some interesting insight in that show. Highly recommend it. And that's everything I watched this week.
Wow.
Paul, what did you
I also finished Community.
Week?
It was really good. Go watch it.
There it is. Finally, man. You've been sitting on that for a while now.
I only watched 2 episodes. I only had 2 episodes left.
I know, you got like right there and then you stopped.
Dude, that's me with what is it? Battlestar Galactica. I literally have like 2 or 3 episodes
Kingdom
left.
Hearts. It ate my life.
We noticed. So this week, these past 2 weeks, I had an interesting opportunity. I sat down with my dad. I've been spending a lot of time down at my parents like the past couple weeks, and he's been mentioning for a while they wanted to see the new Tomb Raider movie. I grew up watching my dad play Tomb Raider. that made me like as an adult pick up the reboot and start playing that, because I remember just sitting there for hours just watching my dad play Tomb Raider. And so I sat down and I put on the new Tomb Raider for him because I've had it for months, I think. And so we got a chance to watch that. It's not my favorite movie. I don't know if it's the best adaptation ever, but it was just a nice little moment as a family where we sat down and just enjoyed it together. I think my dad liked it. I'll have to ask him, and I'll report back eventually. I forgot to ask him. I thought they were criticizing it like the whole movie.
Wait, I missed it. Are we talking about Angelina Jolie, or are we talking about recent Tomb Raider?
We're talking the new one.
Okay.
It's probably a better adaptation than the Angelina Jolie movies.
Yeah, but the problem is that it doesn't have Angelina Jolie in it.
Sure, that's the problem. That would have fixed everything. Every day I wake up and think, man, the new Tomb Raider was just missing Angelina Jolie. It's more in how they adapted. Like certain things were close to the game, but very like radically different in ways that I don't know if like end up being better. But on top of that, I just I sat through a handful of movies my dad was watching, and my dad, like, he's notoriously bad at selecting movies. Like, he picks really, really like awful movies. And so there were a handful that like I can't even remember because I was just so disinterested while I was sitting there with him that like I don't know what they were. But the ones that stuck out, we watched the classic The Great
This isn't
Outdoors
all
with
of
John
them.
Candy. No.
Good Lord.
There were a couple that were like notable enough that I was able to remember what they were and write them down.
I think I've heard you. Have you talked about The Great Outdoors before?
I actually love this movie.
Okay, that's what I thought.
It's something that I think I want to say like late 80s, early 90s. So it's an old movie, and my parents have like been fans of it for a long time. We love John Candy in my household. And
who doesn't love John Candy?
Exactly. It's hard not to.
You ever seen Spaceballs?
It's actually been a while, but The Great Outdoors and Uncle Buck are just two classics that, like, anytime they're on, I will stop what I'm doing to watch them. And so The Great Outdoors was on. We were watching that. I had a mini, like, PTSD flashback because there's a scene with a bat where it, like, shows up in the house and starts chasing him around and stuff. Too close to home. Too close to home.
Just so you guys know, Paul is the real-life Batman. Except his parents are still alive.
Are they, though? Are they?
Or are you the
just
one
a
that's
projection? Oh, none of this is actually real.
dead? Welcome to the spooky room arcade.
Welcome to the existential room arcade.
As soon as I can find a Batman costume in my size.
Good.
I am coming from the Batcave, though. Apparently there are bats, like, in my ceiling. And we had a dude come out to get rid of them, but they're still there. And now there's mice. I can't win with this house. That's why I'm leaving. Forever. But yeah, so The Great Outdoors. Good movie. If you haven't seen it, stop what you're doing, find it, watch it. Should be cheap.
So if they made a movie about your life, they could call it The Great Indoors because that's where all the wildlife is.
Exactly. Just a quick side tangent. So I found a mouse in my house.
Was it attached to your computer?
It was on the ground just sitting there. It was very dead. And so I pick it up, I throw it away, and when I'm putting it in like a trash can outside, there's a dead bird next to the garbage can. This is my life. This is my life. Wisconsin's maybe not fun, so. The Butcher's Wife. It's a movie about a butcher who gets married to some clairvoyant. So it's literally about the butcher's wife. She just kind of shows up into their town and starts like meddling in people's lives, making predictions and kind of funneling them to like the right place, right time. I still don't know how I feel about this movie like days later. It was weird enough that I like actually watched it, but it also wasn't great. It had Demi Moore, I think.
Okay.
But she was a blonde, so like I didn't even recognize her till like halfway through the movie. I'm like, this person seems familiar, but I don't know why.
Demi Moore in more flavors.
Exactly.
No.
So this is one of those movies that like I said, it had enough of an impact that I remembered it. But it also was something my dad selected, so that and Avenging Angel.
I like alliteration. I've never heard of this movie.
There's a preacher in a town. His family gets killed. The people who killed his family take over the town. And then he comes back several years later and gets revenge.
I got the impression as soon as you said pastor or preacher.
This TV movie, as I found out, which makes a lot more sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's your dad's process for choosing movies to watch?
I've still been trying to figure this out, and there's no method to the madness.
Because I think
Is he like a box art kind of guy, or does he just look at the title and say that's cool?
Well, just like whenever we have like free weekends on like movie channels, he'll go through, and I think he just does it by name, which makes even less sense because I like The Butcher's Wife. I would have never even like read the description of that from just the title.
Oh man. Though, okay, I feel like our dads are really similar in that way because my dad's not really huge into movies.
Mm-hmm.
He'll ask me for suggestions. I'm like, what are you looking for? And he has certain restrictions that he won't watch movies with like any like gratuitous sex in it or nudity, which is fine. But then that really limits options because I'm like, here's a really good movie. Oh, no, you don't want to watch that. Like I was about to tell him like, oh, you should totally watch John Wick 2. But I'm like, there's one scene and it's not even like explicit or anything like that. But it like, and he was asking for an action movie. And then eventually he was just flipping through Netflix and just found something, started watching it. I go, okay, which I think there's worth in that kind of, like the way you go about like watching movies because I get so caught up in like, okay, does this have good ratings or not? Is this a classic? And those obviously I prioritize that kind of stuff, but every once in a while it's fun to just kind of like click on something and kind of just roll the dice and see what you get.
Life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
So I've kind of loosened up in that way in terms of movies that I watch. I thought about watching several movies this week, some more classics. Like I had watched the H3, some clips from the H3H3 podcast, right? And Ethan on there kept like talking like The Godfather. And he did this bit like several times throughout the podcast. And it got me thinking, I've never seen any of the Godfather films.
Oh.
And so I like added them to my list on Netflix. But I didn't get around to them. One, the first Godfather film was like 3 hours long. So that's quite the commitment. And secondly, the only way I have of watching anything right now is on my computer or on my phone, and that's not how I want to watch a 3-hour film.
That's fair.
Because I left my my TV at my new place because I didn't want to bring it back because I'm going to leave a bunch of crap there, and that way I have less to bring there. So that'll probably be something that I get to next week as I finish out this last week in Springfield, and then tell my boss that if they want to keep me in Springfield for the time being, that they're just going to have to put me up in a hotel. But I in the past, it's weird to think that like now I have to cover like 2 weeks. Like, what have I done in the last 2 weeks? Like, even since we started the show, I've added things to my list because I'm like, oh wait, I did this, and it's really significant.
It's easy to forget.
It is easy to forget, and that's why I need to be better about like when I do it, like adding it to the list.
I mean, I forgot The Butcher's Wife and Avenging Angel until yesterday. I was like, what did I do? I remember watching a bunch of movies while I was here, but I can't remember what they were.
You were just flipping through things, and then you found your new favorite show, Degrassi High.
Exactly. Also, yes, I got a haircut.
Okay.
And he painted over his posters.
Yeah.
So they're still there, you just can't see them.
Oh, goodness gracious. So I watched, once again, Call Me By Your Name.
Not surprised.
A movie that my dad would have a fit over if he had to sit through, because it has nudity in it, specifically male nudity, and it is a gay romance.
Well,
film.
obviously your dad's not old enough for that kind of movie yet.
He hasn't grown up yet. Maybe one day before he dies, I can convince him to watch it, and maybe he'll cry at it or something like that, because I don't know how you couldn't. Call Me By Your Name, one of my favorite films.
How many times have you seen it now?
I don't know. I've lost count.
I think this is 6.
At least that amount. In addition to that, I have been watching Shane Dawson's Jake Paul series here on YouTube. He just came out with the 3rd episode today. It's an 8-part series. We're getting 2 more episodes this week on a Wednesday and Friday, and that's always exciting.
Is this like a commentary on Jake Paul, or what is this?
So the first episode the whole series is called The Mind of Jake Paul. So if you've watched any of Shane Dawson's docu-series that he's done recently, it's kind of the same format, though this one, and I'm not sure exactly how I feel about it, because it is a little bit slower. Like, each of the episodes has been like 40 minutes, and the first episode was, and they're all just really like, it's just a lot of commentary, right, which is understandable, but it's definitely slower than his other series, but still entertaining, because I've sat through 3 40-minute episodes. And I can't wait until it finishes. Well, I don't want it to finish because it's too good, but I also want to know what happens, right? And he's dealing with and asking a lot of the questions like, what is a sociopath? Is Jake Paul a sociopath? Is Logan Paul a sociopath? And for this like most recent episode,
Paul sociopaths?
No, absolutely not. Farthest thing from a sociopath. And he got a lot of backlash on the second episode, which was him talking with I think an actual therapist who does a lot of YouTube stuff, and he made it really over dramatic, and then he got a lot of backlash from it, and so he did some re-editing for the episodes that were coming later. Like, for example, it opened up with just like some text. This is meant for entertainment purposes only. Don't use this to like diagnose yourself or anybody else, right? Because that's not what I'm trying to do. And so I'm glad he's able to make these changes as they come, and kind of like I kind of admit to the shortcomings of his editing and the way he presents his content. But in this latest episode, he was talking about how Logan Paul, through a series of text messages, admitted to having sociopathic tendencies, which sounds like a cop-out. It sounds like a cop-out. Like, he admitted to being on like the sociopathic like spectrum, right? Because just because you're a sociopath, or I think a a more technical term for a sociopath is somebody who would have like an antisocial personality disorder, right? And trying to define like what that is and asking that question. And so it's just like a whole mess of things. And I think it's about to pick up. I think the later half of the series is going to be a lot more entertaining. I recommend it. I recommend it very highly. I recommend any of Shane Dawson's recent docuseries. He kind of pivoted, right, with his content, and it's, man, everybody's watching it, right? Everybody. Like within like 24 hours, the first episode had over 10 million views.
I think even Rhett has been watching Shane's documentaries. He mentioned, I think, in an Ear Biscuits or something.
Yeah, everybody's been watching. I know Philip DeFranco talks about it all the time. You see so many people just talking about, oh, what's Shane Dawson doing? And it's weird to like have watched like Shane's old content and then contrast it with what he's doing now. But I think it's really great. Moving on from that, Bob's Burgers 9th season just started up. And the premiere episode is fantastic. Bob's Burgers. And it centers around Tina and the infamous boy band in the series. And I really wanted to talk about this because Bob's Burgers has some incredible music in it. Just absolutely fantastic. I don't know, like, I think within this episode, there are like 5 or 6 like smaller musical numbers.
In one,
and it's all like
one episode?
In one episode.
Wow.
And it's and like sometimes they're less than a minute, right? But they're all good, and they're all like, it's all supposed to be like comedic and funny, and they are. Just fits with the absurdity of the show. Centers around like Tina just being absolutely boy crazy. And I thought, I was like, oh man, that was probably one of the better episodes I've ever seen. Just, you could tell they put so much work into that show, and they don't cut corners either.
Well, I think that's evident in just how long it's been running too. Like, yeah. Especially as someone from the outside who has never seen an episode, I can tell.
Logan just died a little on the inside when you said that.
I mean, it's whatever. I don't know why you wouldn't have watched an episode at this point.
He's had the poster on his wall this whole time. Incredible. How could you not watch an episode?
Well, I mean, it's interesting for me. Like, these more like adult-oriented cartoons have never appealed to me a ton.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Shows like Family Guy and American Dad have never done too much for me. I think Rick and Morty was like the first time like I really had a breakthrough. Maybe
I've
someday.
Always been a fan. And I've talked about this before, or at least I think I've talked about this before, because I'm a huge fan of the format, right? You give me a solid adult animated cartoon, not like everyone's going to hit, right? Because there are definitely more, like, I wouldn't expect like either of you to be into like something like Mr. Pickles or Metalocalypse, right?
Joke's on you. I'm kidding. I'm not.
Mr. Pickles is about, a satanic dog. Metalocalypse is about like this death metal band, I think Metalocalypse is great. Mr. Pickles is whatever. But another adult animated comedy that season 5 just dropped. I can't believe we're 5 seasons in to BoJack Horseman. And it's as real as ever. I said this on Twitter like after I finished the season. How is it that the most human show of the last 5 years is an adult animated comedy centering around an anthropomorphic horse? Like it goes back to what I was saying with Toy Story. Is I think they're able to deal and like throw some of these ideas out there and it be so digestible because of the format. They deal with heavy really, really heavy subject matter. You know, they don't recommend it for probably anybody under 16. I think at 16, at least some 16-year-olds might have the capacity of watching it and discerning like kind of the message of the show, right? Because they don't glamorize it, right? Like they deal with substance abuse, they deal with other just awful things. And then at the end, like for some reason, you're either feeling like you just feel like oh man, like I don't even know how to feel about life anymore. Like you're just having an existential crisis after watching BoJack. I think it might be the best season of the show so far too. I don't think it's necessarily the darkest. They definitely have some moments on the show that rival some of the darkest moments on the show, but it kind of ends on a hopeful note, and I wonder how they're gonna play with that for season 6. I also don't think that the show should go much longer. I think maybe 2 seasons more. I mean, they should wrap it up. You know, maybe even 1 season. You know. It'll be interesting to see what's the series arc, right? Where is it going to end up? I think it might end up really happy in the end, but I don't know. That's all I watched in terms of movies and TV. In terms of animated content, though, I'll just segue right into the anime. I've been rewatching Shokugeki.
Anime.
Shokugeki no Soma. It's become one of those shows that I just fall asleep to, because obviously I know what happens. But other times I'll be so like into what's happening, and I'm like, oh no, I shouldn't put on Shokugeki because then I won't actually sleep.
But you definitely hate anime about cooking.
Anime shows about cooking. He hates them.
The worst kind of show. But I just love how reckless Soma is. Like absolutely reckless. Like, you know, it's just like any, you know, shonen anime is you get this overconfident protagonist who's just going to throw themselves into a situation because it's the right thing to do. For example, I can't remember. It's
not always self-righteous with Soma either. He's very much a Goku, in which half the time he just wants to challenge himself.
Right. But there's the one time where there's the one, I can't remember the character's name, but he's the character who essentially just copies
Subaru.
Yes. So he just copies the recipe, and then, you know, he just takes down all these different people, obviously in Shokugeki's, and Soma wants to. He's like, I'm gonna do it anyway, and I'm even better. I'm gonna let you know what I'm gonna make. Like, here's the exact dish I'm gonna make. And then he bets it. He's like, I will stop cooking altogether. Like, I'm not just gonna drop out. I'm gonna stop cooking. I will give up my ambitions. Like, I will give up everything that my life is about to get to take you down and then get all these students their utensils back.
I mean, it's kind of like a personal thing for him too. I mean, if he can't cook better than someone who's just mimicking him, then is he really, you know, worth everything he says he is?
Yeah. And
that's the real struggle that he's going through.
Yeah. So it's great as always. If you don't watch Shokugeki, get on Verve and watch Shokugeki.
And then also, go to Roger's channel and watch Shokugeki no Roger.
If you hate anime shows about cooking, just watch it anyway, you know? Logan also hated them, so.
Yeah. I also watched some Cowboy Bebop, just revisiting. And the reason I watched Cowboy Bebop is because I have the entire series on DVD. And when I was in St. Louis, sleeping on the floor of my new apartment, I I didn't have internet, and so I just threw those discs in my my PS4 and just went to sleep to Cowboy Bebop.
That soothing Steve Bloom, Spike Spiegel voice.
Right. And those tunes, man, the audio design in that show is second to none. Like their use of music, their use of silence is really huge. It's just I don't know who did the sound direction in that show.
I was gonna say it's been a long time since I've seen Cowboy Bebop, and the one thing that I can really remember about the show was how good it sounded.
Absolutely.
I don't know. I feel like Fighting Foodons would give it a run for its money.
I'm gonna fight your food on.
But Cowboy Bebop is one of those tentpole anime. It's one of the anime that really drove the medium here in the United States, especially. One of those first like real dubs that took the Steve Bloom talked about this on Talking Tunes. It's one of those shows that really took the dub and sub debate and silenced the dub haters for once.
Right.
At least in terms, of the United States adaptation, the American side of things.
Yeah, and it's a very Western show as far as anime go.
Yeah,
probably, and so it's one of the shows that got me into anime. Obviously, my first dip was actually with you two watching Mushishi. And
was that the first one?
Yeah. That was like the first anime that I'd ever sat down and watched. And the only reason I watched it was to be like, I don't have any friends. And these guys...
Did we watch Shuffle before or after that?
I thought it was before.
After.
So Mushishi's the one that you sat down
Shuffle
to actually watch it, right?
I think it was Shuffle first. You didn't finish it with us, and then you watched Mushishi with us, and then you liked that. That's the way I remember it.
I don't think so.
I remember it that way too.
I just remember going back and hanging out with you, and you both,
and
Jake Kaufman, and going back and watching Mushishi on this little HDTV, this tiny TV. I think it was probably the same TV that we watched Clannad on. Man, what a time!
It's almost December. It's almost time to watch it again.
Oh,
that's a Christmas season show.
I'll call Greenville and see if we can borrow a dorm room with a tiny television, and we'll just huddle around it and watch it.
And then lastly for this week in terms of anime, I watched the 3 most recent dubbed episodes of My Hero Academia, and holy crap.
There you are.
I guess I should just take my headphones off.
Is probably my favorite episode ever. Okay, now that Brandon is not listening, we can talk, Paul.
Oh man, it's so good! Holy crap! That last episode.
They just wave at me when I can listen again.
Oh,
it's amazing! It was incredible. They finally established Midoriya and Bakugo. Yes.
Yeah.
Bakugo as like proper rivals, and there was like this kind of mutual respect that kind of was like it was established, right? Because for so long, they just resented each other, mostly Bakugo towards Midoriya. But oof, like what a moment, what a great moment. And then you get some insight as to why Bakugo was so resentful towards Midoriya. And like we knew part of it was with All Might and why All Might, chose Midoriya, and as Bakugo saw it, he chose Midoriya over Bakugo, which wasn't the case. Like he didn't see it that way.
Sorry, the chat is just having so much fun right now. It's great.
Yeah,
there's a really nice moment at the end of that fight where All Might, he doesn't necessarily like make up to Bakugo for not selecting him, but he also like I think Bakugo finally comes to terms with it. And like all in the same moment, which actually made me appreciate Bakugo's character more. Like I never expected to like genuinely like Bakugo, and here I am. He might be one of my favorite characters now.
Yeah,
Because the way he handled it was just better than you'd expect given his character, and like it was so good.
Yeah, I see them like, and I see them as proper like rivals in the sense of like balance, right? Bakugo is very, very confident and forward, and Midoriya is very much not. But then Midoriya is very much on the side of like, I'm here to help people, right? And he's full. So they're like opposite sides of the spectrum. But you know, All Might establishes that you need both. You need both. And so all of a sudden you see a little bit like they both are starting to like creep towards the center and gaining a little bit more balance as they are as heroes and as just characters. And it was just, this is a pivotal moment in the series. This is so important. Yeah, I don't have much else to say other than it was easily one of the best episodes. And if you're not watching My Hero Academia, you should be.
I think my favorite part of that is at the very, very end of the episode. You see, like after All Might mentions, like you guys are on like two different spectrums here, but you can learn from each other. And you see Midoriya like reach out and ask, you know, what do you think of my new style? What do you think of my new fighting style? And he gets a response.
Yeah,
that was so wonderful.
Again, there's more respect. Like they actually have like a basis for respect. And Bakugo's pride obviously still gets in the way of a lot, but it's breaking down, right? They're growing up. Oh, it's so exciting. It's so exciting.
I just noticed that, does Brandon have a green stylus? Does it composite in the actual feed? I can't see with my like through Discord. I can't see the green screen.
I'm still waiting for it to come up on the actual like stream.
It's been killing me since I've seen that. But maybe we should wave him back in, or I mean,
if you don't have anything else to say about the episode, we should definitely wave him.
It's a good episode. If you're not watching My Hero Academia, watch it. Does Yoshi show up? That's the real question.
Okay, Brandon, come on back in, Brandon. Reel him back in. Reel him back in. Reel him back in. Come on, Brandon. Come back. Come back. We're done talking about it. What's a Bakugo?
It's a child's marble game.
It's like
I dropped my stylus.
That is amazing.
I like how there's still like a bit of a glare. That's so cool.
The purple stylus, the color changing stylus.
I mean, but with that, like, Paul, I guess you can talk about like what anime have you been watching outside of My Hero this week?
Let me go to my list. So, another show that Brandon didn't get caught up on, Boruto. I wasn't actually going to talk about it.
Come back.
Come back in.
I wasn't actually going to talk about it because you haven't caught up.
I'll get there.
But I've already told him this. They're into a new arc, and it's interesting, and he needs to watch. He'll get around to it eventually. We'll talk about it.
I'm sorry, Kingdom Hearts is time-consuming.
Excuses.
Hey, you've been wanting me to play Kingdom Hearts for years! And then I beat the series before you did!
You also started before I did, so... It's like, at least I actually played the first game.
You got years on me.
Do it.
All I did for the first game was like the first 3 worlds of the final boss because I was not having it.
You need to go back and then you can say you truly beat the series. You beat most of the series.
I'm done.
So in addition to Boruto, I also finally finished Soul Eater. I thought I had like 2 episodes left. Turns out I only had 1 episode left, so I was kind of sad. Wow. I sat down and then the series was just over, and I'm like, there's supposed to be 1 more. There's supposed to be 1 more. There wasn't 1 more. Soul Eater's good. You should check it out. It's good anime. That's it for me this week.
So I also watched My Hero Academia this week, but I watched My Hero Academia 2 Heroes, the movie, because that premiered in American theaters last week. And for those of you who are fans of shonen anime, you've kind of been through this before with shows like Naruto and One Piece and Dragon Ball. They are non-canon films that tell stories that take place on the side of the main plot of these series. And these movies are typically pretty average. They don't do anything to progress the story, obviously. And they tell like isolated stories that are usually okay. I think the ones in Naruto on average are actually fairly decent.
I'd agree with that.
My Hero Academia was really boring. I gotta be completely honest, I did not enjoy that movie very much. For those of you who don't know, like, the very beginning of the movie tells you a little bit about All Might's past, and you get to peer into his time when he was in America as an exchange student, which I don't even know if that's canon or not. But that's part of the movie. And you get this really, like, cool experience with All Might when he was younger, like his very early hero days. And I'm like, oh man, I'm learning more about All Might. This is great. And then, you know, after 5 minutes is up, the rest of the movie happens, and you just kind of stop hearing about All Might's past. Deku and All Might go to an island in America that has different rules about using your powers and whatnot. They set the stage for this really cool environment, which they then proceed to not show you or expand upon in any meaningful way at all. You start meeting some extra characters. A couple of the characters actually delve into their stories a little bit. They deal with All Might's past, and there's a little bit of interesting stuff there. And then the rest of Deku's classmates just start showing up, and they kind of play it off in a comical way. They're like, everyone just happens to be here at the same time. Oh, it's really funny. And then you have characters like Todoroki, who says like 6 things in the entire film. And I'm like, why were you even here? You had nothing to do with the actual movie. The whole entire second act and third act, for that matter, take place in the same place. And it's a real slog from that point to the end, because it's not engaging. The finale, on the other hand, was exactly the kind of stuff I expected from My Hero Academia, and I give that...
Hold up. What is Rasengan this time?
There is no real equivalent to that here.
Good.
That said, as I was saying, the finale of the movie is what you come to expect from something like My Hero Academia. It's really over the top, really cool and exciting, but everything that leads up to it just does not feel that interesting to me. On top of that, my theater experience was also just an awful experience. We had hecklers in the movie theater, as well as some very, very overzealous fans, which is fine. Just, I don't need to hear excessive ahs and oohs every time Bakugo appears on screen. I like Bakugo as much as the next guy, but good lord.
They know what they're about, man.
So overall, I would say that I would have been fine having never seen it. Which is not what I wanted to say coming back here, but I just did not enjoy it very much.
That's disappointing.
Yeah.
That said, you might have a different experience from me, and I'd like to hear that if you guys get a chance to see it.
Probably see it eventually. I mean, it's more My Hero, so
it was just strange to me because, you know, My Hero Academia was like breaking grounds in a lot of ways with shonen anime and just the whole shonen story and doing something new and fresh. And for the old Naruto movies to feel more interesting than this was really backwards feeling to me.
Yeah, that sounds dirty.
I'd say it's better than your average, like, classic Dragon Ball Z movie, but Dragon Ball Z movies are like 40 to 30 minutes long, and My Hero Academia was an hour and a half, and it did not feel like it needed to be an hour and a half.
I was about to say, like, from the sounds of it, it could have probably been 30, 40 minutes and been better.
If it was shorter, it probably would have been a better movie, or I would have enjoyed
I'm-
myself more. Cut the characters who don't need to be there. You're just putting them there
Yeah.
because people are going to cheer for them.
Right.
I don't want that.
I feel like they had plenty of opportunity to make this something like compelling that stands on its own outside of like the canon story. Like, just follow young All Might. That could have been a really, really compelling film, a really great opportunity that they just kind of did in 5 minutes and then didn't touch again. That upsets me.
Yeah, they only make vague references to it for the remainder of the movie. That said, the characterization you get out of characters like Deku and Bakugo are there in full force, and it's exciting when you see them act upon, the established characters that they are. All Might, honestly, is kind of disappointing in this movie. And that's sad, because I love All Might. It's mostly that his character gets reduced to being really inconsequential for a large portion of the film. And when you set up the movie as All Might's past, that's not really what you come to expect, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was probably one of the things that, like, when I watched the trailer, I was like, oh, I get to figure out, like, what happened, like, back in the day with All Might, right? I'd love like a whole movie on that, just tell me like a really gripping story. Even
who was the
something
first
recapping
Avatar?
like a really like significant event in his past, like, for example, when he sustained that injury from All For One, like tell us
Yeah.
what led up to that.
Seriously,
Yeah,
like,
that would have been more interesting. That said, like, I can understand that the manga's not over, the story isn't complete. The mangaka didn't really have anything to do with this movie, so you can't expect there to be big leaps in storytelling or for them to go in that kind of direction. That said, it is still possible to do that kind of thing if the mangaka doesn't plan on touching those certain subjects in the manga and the anime going forward. This is a
Yes.
great outlet. Like, I remember being so excited at the prospect of Battle of Gods for Dragon Ball Z. One, because it had been so long since the story had moved past the end of the Buu saga. And it was the first time that Toriyama himself was being involved in a feature film production of Dragon Ball. And we went to see the movie, or, we watched it subbed, and then we saw it in theaters dubbed, and it was fantastic. It was everything I wanted from a theater experience from Dragon Ball, and I just kind of wish I had gotten that from My Hero Academia, but I understand it was unrealistic to expect that.
Right.
I still feel like to a degree, like, you can come up with a good original story that has nothing to do with the manga. You can find an interesting angle for it, and I feel like so often they just make these movies to make money versus like actually tell a story. They're doing it for the wrong reason.
That's definitely what's happening. Another thing that kind of struck me as odd is that the movie did not look any visually better than a typical episode of the anime. When you went to the theaters, well, I say that now, but I only went to the theaters twice for Naruto. When you go to the theaters for an anime like Naruto, there is a fairly large jump in visual quality from the anime to the movie, and that's just not here. It really felt like I was just watching a long episode. There were areas where you could tell, okay, this is where they're putting their time into, this is where the lead animators and lead artists are really focusing all of their efforts, but it doesn't separate itself enough. And that's not an issue that's not an issue I'm happy to report on, but it's something that bothered me.
I feel you, man. That is disappointing.
I do think that My Hero Academia has potential for better movies going forward, even if it doesn't try and doing anything consequential for the actual plot of the series. We saw with Naruto that they are capable of giving you a good movie without having anything to do with the main plot. It's possible.
I hope they do it.
Yeah. So I guess I should clarify my stance on this movie. It's not a bad movie. It's underwhelming compared to what you come to expect from My Hero Academia.
Because it's a really, really good show.
Yeah.
Like the lows are still pretty great.
Yeah. I'm interested in what you two have to say, so definitely let me know once you've seen it.
Will do.
That is the only anime I've dabbled into in 2 weeks.
Kingdom Hearts, man.
Kingdom Hearts is an anime on its own, so that counts, right?
They had Sasuke, so yeah.
Well, speaking of Kingdom Hearts, I guess I'll talk a little bit about that.
We can all talk about that.
We will all talk about that. I talked about this a little bit, but I'll spend a little bit more time on it since we haven't had a breakdown since I've finished all of this.
Break it down.
So I finished the Kingdom Hearts 2.8 collection, which has Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, the remake or the port of the 3DS game. Kingdom Hearts 0.2 Birth by Sleep, a Fragmentary Passage, which is a very long name, but it's what you get. That is running in the Kingdom Hearts 3 engine, which I believe is just Unreal Engine 4. But they consider it like
Unreal, man.
They consider it a preview of the kinds of gameplay you'll get to experience in the full Kingdom Hearts 3. And I'm happy to report that I was very impressed and very engaged with the gameplay that they've presented so far. There's some massive improvements in the Kingdom Hearts combat when it comes to Kingdom Hearts 3, and I'm very excited to play that in the full game. And then there was Kingdom Hearts Unchained X back cover, which if you go by the lore of Kingdom Hearts, it's actually Kingdom Hearts Unchained Key back cover, which tells an hour-long story dealing with the plot of the mobile game, which is the earliest canon material of the story in the chronology of Kingdom Hearts. Man, they have really like screwed up the way they're telling the plot, because it is just so out of order in terms of the release of the games.
That's what happens when you just make it up as you go.
Well, that's not even how Nomura works. Like, Nomura was not sure that they would get a sequel to Kingdom Hearts, but that didn't stop him from putting a full cinematic that ends up being in Kingdom Hearts 2 at the end of Kingdom Hearts 1. I mean, the plot details weren't completely filled out, but he's consistently done this with every game since then, where, you know, he previews part of the story that will take place in the next game. That said, I don't think he plans that far out in advance, but he is giving it a little forethought. That said, I really enjoyed my time with Kingdom Hearts. It's a little sad to see it go for the next few months before Kingdom Hearts 3 finally comes out. Again, I feel like I cheated because I waited until like months before release to finally even get involved with the series.
And then like play everything all at once.
It really does feel like a big cohesive experience, though. When you get all the story in order like that, it feels complete. A lot of people complain that Kingdom Hearts' plot is really confusing, but it's only confusing if you don't play all of the games. I'm sure a lot of those comments are people who have only played Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2. And if you're only doing that, I can definitely understand why you're having issues.
I mean, like, when you actually play them as they come out, you do have a while in between games. So you do forget details. Like, there are things that, like...
There's a lot.
I had basically completely repressed Kingdom Hearts before I went and played it again.
That's what... You can read the manga now, because there's manga.
Yeah. But, I think, like, over time it can get confusing, because there's a lot of very important things that they always, like, reference back to, and you gotta keep it all straight. But when you're playing it just all together in a block like you did...
And then you play Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance, and there are so many, like, mechanical things you have to understand about how the world works, and I had to watch several videos to understand all of it.
How does the world work?
I don't have the answers to that.
Dang it.
That said, I'm interested in hearing what you have to say after you play Dream Drop Distance, because my brain hurt.
I'll get there.
Yeah, and you've been playing Kingdom Hearts yourself, Paul, right?
Yep. I've been progressing through Chain of Memories, and I haven't gotten a chance to play it since I got back home last weekend. But I'm right at the very end of Sora's story. And then from there, I have all of Riku's story, which I might enjoy better because I just didn't know how to play this whole time. And I just found that out like last Friday that I didn't know what I was doing. Turns out you get enemy cards and you can use them. They don't just like automatically activate. You have to activate them.
And they do
yourself.
some cool stuff, as it turns out.
I had a lot of them in my deck doing nothing the whole time.
Yeah, they're
I
important.
hate myself. I mean, other than that, like I've been enjoying it though. It's not as bad or like weird as I thought it would be. I tried playing a couple times. I didn't get far enough to truly understand what was going on. But now that I've given it like a solid chance, Chain of Memories really isn't that bad.
No, it's a big departure from Kingdom Hearts 1, and that's probably just an element of it being a Game Boy Advance game. Like, how do we adapt Kingdom Hearts to this portable system with the power of a Super Nintendo? And they did a good job.
Yeah. I actually played a bit of the furthest I made it into Chain of Memories up until now was actually on the Game Boy Advance. It works pretty well.
In 3D?
In 2D. Like, it works better than I thought it would.
Oh, yeah. That said, I think the adaptation to 3D with the PS2 remake was fairly good, considering, you know, you're adding an entire plane of existence to a combat system.
Yeah. Cards, man.
And then, Logan, you've played a little Kingdom Hearts yourself, right?
Yeah, so I'm playing through the first game. I picked up the 1.5, 2.5 pack for the PS4. And I've been... I haven't put like a ton of time into it. Probably like 7 or 8 hours. I'm in like the deep jungle. Just... the game is so aimless. And there's not a lot of like strategy that can even be had when it comes to the combat. It's more just like do a little bit of grinding so you can, you know, have a better chance of hitting it enough before you die, you know, hitting a boss enough before you die.
Turns out defensive options are really important in this kind of game.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to getting through this game. Does anybody know how many hours an average playthrough takes?
Like 20,
35 hours.
35 hours for the first game?
I'm kidding. It's less than 20. I want to say it took me like 15, 17.
I was just going, how long to beat that?
I was going to say, Paul, that's longer than Kingdom Hearts 2. And that's a game I wanted to keep playing.
I wanted to scare him a little bit.
I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that long, right? Even from what I've been playing. It says the average is a little over 27 hours for the main story. Completion is 63 hours, which 27 hours, now that I look at that, I'm like, oh no. 27
I did
hours?
like 15 or 17. Like, it's not that bad.
I also beat every Kingdom Hearts game several hours ahead of the average completion time.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm kind of just I like the visuals, and I like some of the things that are happening, and obviously you guys have been talking up the series, but then obviously have warned me. It's like, okay, first games, you're gonna have to trudge through it because it's kind of nonsensical sometimes. Like it's like the second world you get to, and you have to go through like doors in a certain succession.
Traverse Town is an awful design decision.
There are two things that I hate about that game in particular. The beginning and the end.
Oof.
So maybe I just didn't like that game. Like, the middle was okay at best.
Yeah.
Yeah, that series doesn't find its footing until after the first game.
Yeah.
It's big shoes.
And for all the people in the chats, so this is from howlongtobeat.com, and that's the average is 27 hours.
What I think is like semi-completion, right? There are people that like semi-complete it along the way. It's not just like, hey, I bum rushed it.
Right. This is like just getting through the main story. And so they have like the rushed and then the leisure. So rushed is like 17 hours. Like, so if you just rush through the game, you can finish it in under 20 easy.
Yeah.
Leisurely, people put 44 hours into it. Completionists happen from anywhere like 40 hours to 143 hours, which can you believe trying to play this game for 143 hours?
I didn't want to play it at all.
Same.
If it's that hard, maybe just read the manga and skip to the next one.
Yeah, but I mean that's all I have to say about it for now. I'll probably won't.
Where are the coconuts?
To play it until probably next week when I move all my stuff to St. Louis. That's gonna take up a lot of my time. It's even a surprise that I was able to get a vlog up on my personal channel, and then I also just about finished editing the next episode of Smashing Tunes, which I think is a big improvement over the first 2 episodes.
I've liked what I've seen.
So have that to look forward to. But I know Brandon has more games that he's been playing this week.
I do. Let me talk about Dragalia Lost first. I talked about this last Friday. That said, I've been playing even more Dragalia Lost, and this game continues to impress me for being a mobile game. And Paul, you've played it for the first time since then, so what do you think?
Well, my story is very similar to yours. We're like, I'm going to install it, I'm going to play it for a few minutes, and then I'm going to set it down, and then I play it for 2 hours.
Right?
It's like so easy to get sucked in. The story, like, I do have like critiques on the presentation of it, mostly because like my phone is kind of chugging along with it. And so I kind of hate, like, there's been a handful of times where they have like story, mission, mission. Maybe not like 3 mission or stories in a row, but like they'll put like story segments like back to back. It's like you could have combined this. You could have made me like load this once and then move on with my life, and you didn't.
Yeah.
But outside of like small things like that, like all the characters that I've gotten so far, like even non-story ones, are all like brimming with personality. You have all these dragons. Like I have a favorite dragon of the few that I've gotten so far, and I have no chance of loading that in time to show it. But
you're talking about summons, though, right?
Yeah. And like, it's not difficult to control. You're able to play it with one hand largely, which I also really just appreciate. Like it's so good. I think this is like what this is what I would expect from like Nintendo really taking the hardware serious and trying to make something around that concept.
Now, I know this game was primarily developed by Cygames and it's published by Nintendo, but I do believe it's a partnership between both companies. I just don't know to the extent of Nintendo's involvement. Obviously, you see that big old red Nintendo logo when you load up the game. But that said, the guys that they're working with have had experience in this before, so they made a good choice.
Definitely.
I really appreciate like how not in your face the monetization aspects of the game are. They are hidden away in a menu. The game doesn't even outright really tell you about them. You just kind of have to stumble upon it. I imagine it might tell you like if you run out of stamina or some other materials, but I'm like 5 hours deep and I have never run into that problem.
My stamina has never dropped past like full. Maybe like once or twice, but like it's always like out of 20 and it's always in like 30, 40.
What kind of like monetization, like how is the monetization? Like what do they try to get you to spend money on?
They want you to spend money on items, on like actual items in the game, and then diamonds, which you can use to summon more characters, more dragons.
Right.
They're like a replacement currency. Yeah, that's really the main areas where they're trying to get you to spend money. And I'm sure like some of the items you can buy are like stamina replenishment, so you can keep playing the
Right.
game and don't get stopped. But it's not vicious about it. It's not carnivorous. It's not preying on you.
Yeah.
Right.
And I really appreciate that. I mean, I know that they've been dealing with monetization in games like Animal Crossing New Leaf and Fire Emblem Heroes. But in my experience, especially with both of those games, is that you're usually given enough just by playing that you don't have to spend the money.
Right.
Well, there's
This
his
boy is my
favorite.
favorite. Juggernaut.
Oh, he's pretty.
He's majestic. And I feel cool transforming into him.
Also, can we talk about the bumpin' soundtrack?
Yeah.
This game's got great music.
I didn't like the main theme. I didn't care for it at first. I think it's because I had like a gig and a half of like download where it was just sitting there playing on loop for like 40 minutes while it's downloaded. And so by the time I got done with it, I'm like, I don't want to listen to this at all. And then the very like next day it comes on. I'm like, oh man, this is catchy. Dang it.
So are you talking about the title
It got a
screen
second-
theme or like the
Yeah.
menu screen theme?
I think the title screen,
Okay.
it got a second wind.
Can we talk about that menu screen music though? Your character just like walks down a path to the beat of the song, and Dalco starts singing, and I'm like, all right, I'm here to stay. You got my attention. This game's got fantastic presentation.
Oh yeah.
And one of Josiah's favorite themes is the boss battle theme, which I looked up a couple days ago just to hear it in full, because it's usually like backed by all the sound effects from the boss fight. And man, it's so good. In the words of Conmen, in the words of the Try Guys. Just the level of polish in this game is far beyond what I would ever expect for any mobile game ever.
Yeah, I never expected like to actually want to sit on my phone and just sit there and play a game for hours. And I did it. I spent like most of Saturday just sitting around playing it. And I was just as happy as, having my Switch in my hands.
And, the plot isn't, like, super deep or anything, but the way they present the story is actually fairly interesting, and I want to know what's going to happen next. That said, they did add a feature where you can skip cutscenes, and then you will get a little dialogue box with a quick explanation of what happened in the cutscenes, so you can keep going.
They know.
That's cool.
Did I mention that there's, like, scenes that are fully voice acted?
And they're pretty good.
Yeah, the acting is strong. Not the kind of acting you'd expect from a game like Star Fox Zero.
Needs more Sean though.
Does need more Sean.
Both of them.
Yeah, and then there's online co-op play in real time, dungeon crawling with your friends, up to 4 players simultaneous, which again is not something I expect in a mobile game like this.
Yeah, that doesn't sound. I would never, ever expect that from a mobile game.
It works
we got
great.
it.
I played for 3 hours with Michaela, just side by side. We went through the story together because you can do that. And we were having a blast. Like, I would set up the room, she'd put in the room code, we would watch the cutscene, or read the cutscene, and then move into the game, play the boss, and move on. And then there would be, like, a 10-minute period of time where she and I would be, like, upgrading stuff or building the castle. There's also this castle building mechanic that I've gotten way too into. So
What level is your mines?
My mines are at like level 7 or 8 each.
After a certain point, like, it takes so long to upgrade them.
Yeah, like, I think the castle upgrades, if you upgrade the castle itself, takes like 3 hours.
I think the longest I've seen was like a half hour. And I sat there and I waited that half hour.
You wanted those spoils. That said, you can click on it, and you can insta-build it if you spend your Wormite, which is the currency you want to use to summon characters.
So I don't want to use it to build my castle quicker.
That said, it only asked me for 15, and
That's not
for
bad. The first
1,500
time.
Wormite, you can summon 10 characters. So it's not asking for a lot.
Yet.
No, not yet. But like,
It's a slow burn.
I'm 5 hours deep. At this point, I would have figured the game would have been, begging for money, and it's not. And I really appreciate that. I'm at the point where I would like to see some Dragalia Lost content of some kind in Super Smash Brothers, whether that just be music or maybe some trophies, nothing like substantial.
Yeah.
Definitely some music. I would be into that.
I want to spend 1,500 Wormite and summon a bunch of dragons as an assist trophy.
You can also look in the game, and it gives you the statistics for the drops of every single character, item, and dragon in the game. So you know what your chances are every time, which I thought was a
But I'm
nice
still
touch.
not going to get them.
Yeah, transparency
Monster
and
Hunter's
that kind
taught
of stuff
me.
is really important.
I don't know if other gacha-style games do that, but that was something that I really liked. Also, in the More menu, there is manga. And they add to the manga, like, once every couple of days. And they're just manga about the characters, and you can read them. They're like 6 or 7 panels long. And they're just all in the actual app. And it's consistently being added to. I thought that was adorable.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. I actually didn't know that.
One thing I didn't like about gacha games in the past is, like, you don't get any attachment to the characters. But, like, if you upgrade the character summons mana circles, you will unlock their stories, which you can then watch. They're like the text-based cutscenes, and you get to experience them. And you just unlock them for the characters as you go, so you get more attached to your summons that don't have anything to do with the main plot. It's just a really well thought out design. It's not doing anything super groundbreaking, but it's doing everything that it does pretty well. And I think that's what makes it stand out above everything.
I actually have a problem where, like, I know there's advantages to, like, stacking your team with characters of a certain type, but there's just a handful of people that I just like too much to remove from my team.
And that's fine. The game gives you that freedom.
And I like that.
There's
I
also
can keep my homies on my squad.
And if you do worry about that kind of thing, there's a quick little edit team button, and then there's an optimize button. You just tap the optimize button, and the game sets up everything that you would need to have the most efficient run on a certain dungeon. So it respects your time, which is something I also appreciate.
It's a good game.
So yeah, Dragalia Lost. I would say that's a sleeper hit, and a game I will probably play to the end of the story, at the very least.
Same.
That's not the only game I've been playing, and Paul, you played this too.
Yeah. And it's
Very
a good
good.
game.
Gloomhaven. You've heard me talk about it on the show a lot, so I'm going to talk about it more.
It might be really, really good.
Gloomhaven is a D&D-like game, but everything that you need to play the game is just in the box, and it's a preset, pre-built campaign, but it's based on decisions that you and your team make. It's really
We've made
good.
a couple of bad choices at times.
We went to Heck, and we killed Satan.
It's a redemption arc.
Yeah, after, like, doing some bad things, a portal to Heck
Slaughtering your
opened.
entire race.
Yeah, we slaughtered my entire race, as a matter of fact. And I didn't really think about it until after we had done it.
We're on a redemption arc right now.
Yeah.
That sounds very gloomy.
Our town is Gloomdale, right?
Our party name is Gloomsdale, but it's the name of the town is Gloomhaven.
Okay. I like Gloomsdale.
And the cool thing about Gloomhaven is that you start with 6 different character classes, which each come with a figure, as well as a pack of materials for your character. But every character in the game draws a random personal goal or a personal quest that you're attempting to achieve over a long period of time. Once you've achieved that goal using your character, that character retires from the game forever.
And we've had that happen once already.
We have. And there's also special conditions on those goal cards. And when you meet them, you unlock new characters. And that's right, I said unlock. In a game that is full of cardboard boxes with characters inside them. You're not allowed to open them until you unlock them in the campaign. It's
You need to be
really
worthy.
Cool, really cool setup. So Alvin was the first person to unlock a character. His personal goal was to collect 200 collective gold at any one time.
And we kind of caught on at some point, even though we weren't supposed to, but...
It took like 15 to 20 total hours for that to happen.
That's so cool.
I
mean, something similar happens, and I obviously you play games and you reach certain milestones or achieve certain conditions, and it unlocks in a video game. And so it's interesting to say, like, oh, this is a physical game that you're moving pieces and giving people money. And
yeah, it feels very rewarding to play. There's even what were you gonna say, Paul?
I was just gonna say, there's so much to it. Like, there's a church you can donate gold to, and if you donate 10 gold just in between missions, you get some bless cards, which might give you a ×2 attack multiplier at different points.
There was an envelope we got to open after we donated 100 collective gold to the church. There's just an envelope on it that says, once you donate 100 gold to the church, open this envelope, see what's inside.
We also got to open, I think, like the town records after he finished his character's mission.
Yep, there's a whole book inside of the box that you can't open until the first character, your first player has retired a character officially, and it starts to tell you the story and history of the town of Gloomhaven. Among other things, there's more in there we don't know about.
Like, there's also did we open that one envelope? I thought we agreed I forgot what was in it. What was in it?
There is an envelope in the box.
We can't say. Never mind.
We won't say, but I'll talk about it. There is an envelope in the box that says, open this envelope when you feel you deserve it. You can open it whenever, and the game just tempts you. It says, do you feel you deserve to open the envelope yet? Because you just pop that seal, see what's inside. And we opened it. We made an agreement. We decided that after the first person in our group manages to retire a character, we'd open the envelope. Alvin is the one who made the deal, knowing he was like one mission away from retiring his character. Yes, Gloomhaven is very expensive. I got the game at $100 from a very good local board game shop called Gaming Goat. I think they're just part of like the Midwest region. But despite like the high price it was selling for, they reserved the next copy of the game that they got in, called me when it was in, and then sold it to me for, the actual price of the game and not some exuberant price like you were getting on Amazon. And it's still selling at huge prices like that on Amazon. It's currently going for $194 on Amazon.
It's money well spent, but still.
So my recommendation is find a party of people who'd want to play the game with you. Up to 4 people can play at once. And if you're into tabletop games or into D&D like experiences, split the cost with them and then play the game. Dedicate like one night a week or one night every 2 weeks. You're going to have a blast. It's really good.
I think my favorite part was we had Josiah sub in and just kind of talking about like how we are on a completely different path based on the missions we chose and the choices we made than what him and his group that he plays with were on. Like we were doing the exact opposite of things, and we're almost, I think this is what sparked our redemption arc.
We were down a path of evil. There was a reason we even came to meet Satan. It's because we did some bad things.
But we made it right.
Yeah, and like there are other choice-based things too. Like when you go out onto a mission or a scenario, you have to do a road event, which is a random card pulled from this huge deck of different road events that can take place. It'll deal you a scenario and then give you 2 options on how you can respond to the given situation. And that can either damage you or deal bad things. You might lose money, you might lose prosperity to the town, or you'll gain prosperity, gain a new item, and other things.
Eat the berries, don't eat the berries. Whatever you choose, it's going to be wrong. That particular instance.
We've gotten like 3 different cards about eating berries, and we've been wrong all times but one, I think. The first time we were blessed. The other times we were not. I think the second time we were like poisoned, and we started the mission with like 2 or 3 below maximum health.
I didn't even want to risk it that time, but some people were like, well, it went well the first time, let's eat them again.
This makes me it makes me a little bit bitter that you guys get to have this experience and like I don't have Gloomhaven. I don't have like
Luigi.
a dedicated amount of I got Luigi. A dedicated like group of people to play this with. Hopefully I can, moving to St. Louis, I can find some people and maybe convince them. Because I think the people I'm moving in with are pretty nerdy. And they probably know some pretty nerdy people. So I'd like to find like a group of people that I could play this with.
I would highly, highly recommend it.
I'm hoping I can get back for some more.
Also,
soon.
I will have to send you a link to a forum post on Board Game Geek, which details the exact set of tackle boxes that you have to purchase in order to keep the game organized.
Oof.
It is very useful.
There is so much stuff in that box, it would be super easy to lose everything. There are 4 tackle boxes that I have that fit inside of the box that each serve their own purpose for organization. 2 of the boxes are dedicated to just monsters that appear in the game.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yeah.
There's a lot of monsters.
Just know, like, if you play Gloomhaven, you're going to spend a lot of time setting up. So my recommendation would be to set up whatever scenario you intend on playing before your party gets there, so that once they're there, you can just start.
Also, train the people you're playing with on how things kind of operate. Like, it's easier to set up like the next scenario if you have one person pulling out all the monster cards from the next scenario and pulling out all the little figurines and setting them up and putting them in the right place, while one person finds the tiles for the map and sets that up.
We've gotten pretty good at setting the game up and putting it away. I think on average we manage it in like 15 to 20 minutes on each side.
We're getting good.
It takes a lot of time, and you'll need a lot of space.
4 tackle boxes, man. You laugh, but there's 4 tackle boxes.
Sounds like a full-time job right there.
It's a lot of work, but the payoff
Set up
is
and tear
enormous.
down.
Gloomhaven was a huge success on Kickstarter, and there's a reason why, because it is fantastic. There is an expansion coming out in December, I think, with 20 brand new scenarios, a new class. And the story takes place after the end of Gloomhaven. So once you've finished your campaign in 2047, you'll be able to play more Gloomhaven.
I look forward to that.
If you didn't already know, this is my highlight of the week.
I'm changing mine to it too.
That's also all I have to say about games.
Let me think if I had anything else. Oh yeah, I beat Super Mario Brothers 3.
For the first time?
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I used a lot of suspend points. I'm not good.
That's okay.
But the game's good.
I plan on doing the same thing with Super Mario Bros. 3 here pretty soon.
You played on your Switch, I take it?
Yep.
Using that hot NES Online?
Oh.
I have Super Mario Bros. 3 on my 3DS, but I'm going to end up playing it on my Switch now that I have it available on my Switch.
Too convenient.
Yeah.
I'm like Brian Altano. Like, I have Super Mario Bros. 3 specifically on like a lot of devices. I had it on my Wii. I have it on my Wii U. I'm pretty sure I have it on my 3DS. Now I have it on my Switch. I had it on NES. Take your pick, and I have a way of playing it there.
Yeah.
But somehow I never beat it.
It's kind of like Super Metroid, except to a lesser extent. Like, I bought Super Metroid on my 3DS and got really, really close to beating it. Like, I was like at Ridley. And then I started playing it again on my SNES Classic, and that's where I actually beat it. So
very nice.
At least I got around to beating it eventually, right?
And now you get to play as Ridley in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate come December.
Heck yeah! I've actually finished a Metroid game now.
There you go. Metroid Prime Trilogy HD, please.
Yeah, actually, again, like over the last few weeks, I've played a lot of games. And I keep forgetting to put them down. So I have a lot more games that I've played. No, that's it wrong. Okay, so I'll start with talking about some of the smaller stuff. I played some Rocket League, like always. Played some with my little brother. I played some Picross S, if you guys don't know what Picross is, but you guys are into puzzle games. That is something you should check out. I really like Picross. It's all about filling in spaces and creating pictures just based on structures and rows and columns and numbers dictating how all of that works, and then you just have to figure it's a logic puzzle.
Right.
I played a little bit Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy. I'm still working through the first game, which is really rough. It's still really rough. Obviously, there's Kingdom Hearts. I've started Thousand Year Door for the millionth time, which I've never beaten. I got my butt kicked by the Omega Pirate in the original Metroid Prime 3 or 4 times before I was like, oh, and then that's my game keeps sitting in my new apartment, so I haven't played in the last week. I've been playing some Batman Arkham City over on Twitch. I've played through Arkham Asylum, so I figured this is a good way to play through the games. Just stream it, interact with people. I'm farther than I've ever been in Arkham City, and it feels good to be Batman. Binding of Isaac. I've played a ton of Binding of Isaac in the last few weeks. That's another game that. Yeah.
It's an evergreen game.
That was the game that I was thinking about when I was like, you get enough money, you unlock a character. Like I think you have to get like 55 coins, and then when you get 55 coins at once, then I think that's when you unlock like Kane or something like that. I streamed some Binding of Isaac as well. That was a lot of fun.
Or the card game comes out next month.
Yeah.
Can't wait.
Of all the games, the most important game that I finished in the last 2 weeks was Spider-Man for the PS4.
Oh yeah, you weren't here when we had our big gushing about Spider-Man last time.
Nope. And I've had more time to think about what I liked and disliked about the game, right? I thought the weakest point of the game, especially after playing some more Arkham City, because there's a lot of Arkham DNA within the Spider-Man game.
Yeah, there is.
A lot of Arkham DNA. The one piece of DNA that I felt like didn't carry over terribly well was the boss battles. I thought the bosses in Spider-Man were extremely underwhelming and very samey.
Now that you mention it, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and so I hope those get more creative as
they're not as designed as they are in the Arkham games.
Yeah, and that's what I like. I like a well-designed. I like trying to figure out, what am I supposed to do? Not just I got to do this thing. Like it's very clear cut in Spider-Man, which
the game would
wish
also tell you what to do.
Right. Whereas like in Arkham City, I just beat Solomon Grundy. Solomon Grundy.
Yeah.
Gundy.
Close enough.
Gundy.
Shout out to Nick Gundy. Go check out his music. But Solomon Grundy, and like even then, like, okay, you're not attacking him directly. Like you're attacking these spots on the floor that you have to put down like explosives, and then blow it up. And then you have to do that several times. And then each of the stages of the fight gets a little bit more difficult. And there's like things that change. And I wish there was more of that in Spider-Man. And I know there can be, though I totally didn't anticipate that we would even be dealing with like Dr. Octopus. Obviously, Dr. Octavius was in the game, but I didn't know they were going to play on that. Yeah,
a little late, but okay.
Because like there's other characters in the game that they don't obviously expand upon, but there is a big spoiler alert. Like there's like 2 or 3 like post-credit scenes, just like all the recent Marvel films. And so obviously I think we're going to be dealing with Green Goblin in the next game, which I'm very excited about. So just a lot of great things, some pretty glaring shortcomings. Even like the Metacritic score is sitting at like an 87.
I think that's about right.
I probably would actually put it a little bit lower, which is surprising because like I was super hyped for this game and I loved the game. I really did. But I'm surprised it hit that high. Probably because everything else is so executed so well. The mechanics just feel amazing. Just the game feels really good. So
it's similar to what Brian and Zach said on the most recent Nintendo voice chat. Like, we criticize these games because of how much we love them and we want to see them improve next time.
Yes.
So I think it's perfectly respectable that you'd criticize it in the ways that you have.
Yeah. But there's one more thing I'd like to talk about, and this isn't something we normally talk about. But I started reading a book. And this is actually the highlight of my week, and I just read the first chapter. But I think one of the reasons is it caught me off guard, right? So I bought an absolutely remarkable thing by Hank Green.
Really like that.
Check out. Yeah, it's just very gripping. I think I paid a little under $20 for it. It's a hardcover. But the first chapter, it just kind of like I identified like eerily like, oh, this sounds like a lot of who I am as a person. And I bought this not really knowing what it's about. I bought it because I have a lot of respect for Hank Green. And then this is his first novel, whereas his brother John Green is a very accomplished novelist at this point, having a handful of bestsellers under his belt. But it's about centers in the first person. The character's name is April May, and the writing is just very atypical from what I expect from novels. It's very
this is fiction?
It's fiction.
Okay.
Yeah, very much so. It's very casual. But April May got a degree in fine arts. I didn't get a degree in fine arts, but I did get a creative degree. She talks about being like, it was good business, good enough that I wouldn't have had a lot of debt if I had gone to a state school, but I did not do that. I had loans, lots. So it's like, oh, wow, I have a lot of loans. And then she talks about her friend doing YouTube, and I assume that she's probably going to get into YouTube at some point, creating that kind of stuff. But it just kind of hit on so many of like, here are my struggles as a millennial, as a creative, similar mindset, similar struggles, and like it just caught me off guard. Like it hit me, and I'm like, oh. And then all of a sudden, like, you know, the first chapter is like 12 pages. I think it's like about 350 pages long, 25 chapters. So about an average about 14 pages per chapter. I'm not a huge reader, but I feel really compelled to read this book, especially after reading that first chapter, the first 12 pages, and being like, he just spoke to my soul.
Yeah, I mean, if it grips you that early on, you're probably in for a good ride.
Yeah. And then it makes me think about, like, what if I think one day I could write my own novel. You know, I could write my own book. It's probably something along, but I think that would be something that, like, man, I would want to do that just to say that I did it, that I accomplished something. Like, I think they said it took him 5 years to write this novel. That's a long time. But also not very long, because some novels took even longer to write, you know? But that's quite the investment, especially with how busy person Hank is, you know, with running like a whole host of YouTube channels and a merch company and VidCon and just making his own videos, and the man is super, super busy. And I have a lot of respect for what he does. And I have a lot of respect for his rhetoric, the way he talks about, just wanting people should do what they want to do and they should be creative. And whereas some creatives are very like elitist, right? And they're very like, okay, only these type of people should be creating. He's like, let's just get anybody and everybody to just create. If it's something you want to do, you should do it.
That's Steve Bloom's approach to his teaching when it comes to voice acting.
Yeah. So it's one of the reasons I was compelled enough to buy this book. And I might end up putting a book review on my personal channel once I finish it. For frame of reference, I'm not a reader. The last book I finished was like 3 or 4 years ago, and it was Fahrenheit 451. I finish a book maybe every few years, but I would like to read more because I find myself enjoying it. It's a change of pace. I feel really good about myself when I do sit down and I read for half an hour.
Maybe it's time to take a trip to the library.
Yeah. I should spend more time at the library. But that was the highlight of my week, and that's the last thing I have to talk about. So thank you for listening.
Well, that was a packed episode, guys. 2 weeks worth of stuff. And we still kept it under 2 hours.
Whoa.
I think we're getting good at this, maybe. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode of the Breakdown Podcast. We do these bi-weekly every other Monday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time. We used to do them weekly, but we only have so much time, and we have to dedicate it to the one that people watch more, which is Nintendo stuff. That said, there might be a time, sometime way out in the future, where we can go back to the old schedule. Mm-hmm. That said, speaking of schedules, I've got an announcement to make. On October 31st, on good old Halloween, I will be doing a spooky Hallow stream of Luigi's Mansion. Planning on playing the whole game in one night. So that's the goal.
It's not a long game, is that?
It's about 7 hours.
Okay.
So long stream. It might end up being a 2-night stream, Hallows Eve and then Halloween. But yeah, I've wanted to do a nice spooky Hallow stream for a few years, or just some Halloween-based stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy that. If you're not spending your Halloweens doing anything, maybe spend it with me. But if not, the VOD will be on there after the fact. Also, I have been streaming some Super Smash Bros. For Wii U in preparation of Super Smash Bros. Ultimate coming out in December. I am playing matches online with viewers, so if you happen to catch me while I'm streaming, hook me up with your friend information on Wii U, and maybe I'll fight you on stream. We had a very successful night with that a couple days ago. You guys had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun. And I'll also do some streams where I'm just playing some For Glory. But I got my Elgato HD 60S, and I've been using that very frequently since I purchased it. I'm very happy with the results with it so far. So yeah, I will let you guys know on our Twitter and our Discord, links to both of those in the description, about when those will be taking place. I'm pretty spontaneous when it comes to streaming games, so you usually won't find out until about 2 or 3 hours before I do it. So just a fair warning as far as that goes. But I do plan on streaming a lot of Smash leading up to Ultimate, and then streaming and playing a lot of Smash Ultimate once Ultimate's out. So look forward to all of that. Come back Friday at 7:30 p.m. Central Time for the Good Old Nintendo Stuff podcast, where we talk about all the Nintendo news and updates and interesting stories for the week. Hopefully we have some interesting stories to talk about. I think we had a pretty interesting show last week, talking about Reggie and the cool things he does on the side outside of being president. So
one of our dads.
Yeah, one of our many dads. So with that all in mind, make sure to keep it locked here to the Break Room Arcade. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Like this video if you'd liked it. And if you really want to help support us, we have a link to our Patreon in the description. You can help by donating as little as $1 a month. We have 2 beautiful patrons that help keep this show alive, and we love them both very much. And we love everyone, actually. So
As it turns out, yeah.
yeah. But thanks so much for tuning in every week, guys. We will see you guys on Friday night for the Breakdown podcast. You'll probably see me in the next couple days with some Smash Brothers. So with all that in mind, don't break your backs, break in the games. But for now, break time's over.